Rich Dad, Poor Dad: What the Rich Teach Their Kids About Money That the Poor and Middle Class Do Not. Robert T. Kiyosaki and Zach Bowman, Del Bolsillo, 2016. Many useful tips to gain a new perspective on the management and improvement of your personal finances. Understand any possible errors in the way you think about wealth or poverty. Improve your relationship with money. The author. Robert Toru Kiyosaki is an American investor, a businessman, a motivational speaker, and author who works in aid of financial literacy. He is an entrepreneur born and raised in Hawaii and currently lives with his wife, a real estate investor, in Phoenix, Arizona. After he graduated in New York, Kiyosaki became a Marine and was a helicopter pilot in the Vietnam War. After the war, he worked for the Xerox Corporation for 5 years. In 1977, he created his first company. In 1985, he founded an international financial training company, which he then sold in 1994, the year in which he published his best-selling book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he created the educational game Cash Flow. 2 fathers and 2 different educations on money. My poor father, who is also my real father, excelled in his studies. He has a degree and is a professor, but has always had financial problems. He used to say that the love of money is the root of all evil, that money is not important, and he would often say, "I can't afford it." He encouraged me to study hard so I could be hired by a good company and avoid financial risk. He felt poor, and he said it often. My rich father, who is my friend's dad, never finished high school. He became one of the richest men in Hawaii. He used to say that a lack of money was the base of all evil, and that money was power. He forbade me from saying that I couldn't afford something and urged me to ask myself, how can I afford it? He encouraged me to study hard to find a good company to buy, learning to manage risk. If he went through dark times, he said he was broke because he thought it was a temporary condition and not a permanent state. Both men were strong, charismatic, and people listened to them. They were successful in their jobs, which they always worked hard at. However, the advice that they each gave me about money differed significantly. Having 2 dads made me reflect, without rejecting their ideas on principle, but trying to ascertain which advice was the best for me. The problem is that financial education is not a school subject. There is no such subject as money. Money is a form of power, but what is even more powerful is a financial education. I have learned 6 lessons about money, which I am going to illustrate in this book. Rich people don't work for money. If you think that your employer doesn't pay enough, that they are unfair, and that you deserve a higher salary, you actually are being a bit short-sighted. You need to realize that you are the problem. You can change yourself, learn something, and become wise. It is easier to change yourself than to change others. Most people quit their jobs to go and look for better ones or a better salary, thinking that they will be able to solve the problem. The fact is that they do not solve the problem. In fact, the poor and the middle class work for money. Rich people make money work for them. Learning to work for money is easier, especially if you allow yourself to be taken over by the fear of risk. But this kind of thinking can have you trapped for life, dependent on your employer, stuck to the routine that your workplace imposes on you, and paying lots of tax. This model is consolidated on the one hand for fear of running out of money, and on the other for greed or the desire to buy things with money earned through work. And so you get up every morning, go to work, pay taxes, bills, and all the rest of it. That is the cycle. Work, earn, hope that your fear will vanish. This life is dominated by the emotions of fear and greed and seasoned with financial ignorance. There is another way, a path that few people take, who surrender to the evidence and admit the truth. The truth is that work sucks and that those people are governed by their emotions. These people can become truly rich in the broadest sense of the term. Having lots of money is not enough to stop yourself being dominated by fear. You have to change the way you think about money. In fact, one should neither be too attached or too detached from money. The trick is to be true to your emotions, using your brain and feelings not to your disadvantage, but to your advantage. It is important to get our emotions into perspective without letting our feelings control us and lead us to be impulsive. By this we mean using our emotions to think and not to be driven by them. Making money work for us means earning it even without being present. There are many ways to do this, and this is the direction that you should try and work towards. Why is it important to teach financial ABC? The most important thing is not money itself, but education. Those who are flexible with an open mind get rich despite any changes. Intelligence can be used to solve problems and make money. In the long run, it doesn't matter how much money you make, but how much you are able to hold on to and for how many generations you can keep it. The number one rule, which is the only rule, is knowing how to distinguish between assets and liabilities and buying the former. The rich buy assets, the poor and the middle class buy liabilities, believing that they are assets. If you want to get rich, you must learn to read and understand numbers. To do this, you need to be able to understand a simple spreadsheet called cash flow. At the bottom, there are two boxes, which must be filled with the assets on the left and the liabilities on the right. At the top, there are two more boxes, one for incomes and one for expenses. The ABC of finance is accounting. It is very simple. Assets generate income, liabilities generate expenses. An active person puts money in their pockets while a passive one takes it away. The flow of money is represented in a diagram with arrows, so the top part is a profit and loss account and the bottom part is a balance sheet. The cash flow of a poor man is as follows. Money in the form of salary comes into the income box. From here, the money goes down to expenses, which are taxes, food, rent, clothing, entertainment, transport, etc. This is the cash flow of a middle-class person. Money in the form of salary comes into the income box. From here, the money goes down to the same expenses as before, but that is not all. There are also liabilities such as a home loan, consumer loans, and credit cards. A rich person's cash flow, on the other hand, has arrows that go in an upward direction. They have assets, bonds, shares, bills of exchange, real estate, and intellectual property that produce income such as dividends, interest, rental income, and rights from any intellectual property. For this reason, having more money is not enough, because it will only strengthen the cash flow model that you already have in your head. For example, if you have more money and move to a bigger house, your expenses will also increase. So you really do need a change of attitude. A house is a liability because it usually comes with a 30-year mortgage that has substantial interest, which has to be paid on top of the taxes. Moreover, the value of a house does not always increase over time. It requires an immobilization of capital that cannot be used for other investments or that can come in handy, so that you are not always in it up to your neck. A house is not totally bad, but if you want to buy a house, you first have to buy goods that can generate the cash flow that can be used to pay for it. So to sum up, increase income generating assets and decrease liabilities and expenses. That is all it takes. Breaking out of the vicious cycle involves stopping working for an employer, the banks that lend you the money, and the state that collects taxes. We can measure wealth in terms of time. In other words, we need to ask ourselves the question, if I stopped working today, for how long could I survive? This allows us to evaluate our current position with regards to financial independence. For example, if I have a cash flow from my profit of 2,000 euros and expenses of 1,000, I am rich. I won't be wealthy just yet, but I would have enough to survive. At this point, I would no longer be dependent on my salary. If I want to lead a more comfortable life, I will first increase my cash flow income, then I can allow myself to increase my expenses. Take care of your business by keeping an eye on the asset column. If you work all day for someone else, you cannot manage your own business. Running your own business means taking care of the asset column. If you don't, you try to leave your parents' home as soon as possible, buy your own home, support the children, and then it's too late to accumulate a decent pension. There are different types of assets. Businesses that do not require our presence because they are managed by other people. Shares, bonds, investment funds, real estate or landed property that produces an income, active bills, promissory notes, copyrights on intellectual property such as music, patents, and screenplays. Anything that has value, produces an income, increases in value, and already has a market. An example is investing in small companies that go public. The risk is high, but that risk is reduced if you love the investment sector and if you understand the game. In this case, my strategy is to hold the shares for a year and then sell them on. With real estate, on the other hand, my strategy is to start small and exchange the assets for larger properties, thus postponing any taxes to be paid on the increase of annuities. I don't usually hold my properties for more than 7 years. I wouldn't recommend that anyone start their own business unless they really want to. It comes with very heavy burdens and workloads, as well as huge risks, so it should only be considered if you are really into it. Luxury properties should be bought last, when you already have abundant financial independence. The history of taxes and corporate power. Historically, taxes are new and were introduced relatively recently as a concept. The first taxes were approved in England to finance the wars against Napoleon and France from 1799 to 1816, and in America to finance the Civil War from 1861 to 1865. Permanent income tax was then adopted in Britain in 1874 and in the US in 1913. The new regulation only passed because they made the poor and middle class believe that only the rich were going to pay taxes. In reality, the rich have learned to pay as little as possible, and so the other two classes were the most oppressed. For example, in the United States, there is a law that allows you to defer payment of taxes on a property sold to obtain a profit on capital by exchanging it for a more expensive property. As long as exchanges of this kind are made, taxes on profits can be avoided, right up to the final settlement. Not taking advantage of these exemptions means missing an opportunity to increase your asset column. In addition to learning your financial ABCs, you also need to understand investments, markets, and laws. In fact, you need to know or hire someone who knows and understands tax loopholes, and to have sufficient judicial protection. Having capable and intelligent consultants is a basic requirement, as is paying them well. Furthermore, an important rule for taxes is to pay them last, close to the deadline. First I have to pay myself, then save, then in the end pay my taxes and my bills. What is financial intelligence? To generate money without working more, financial intelligence is very important. On the one hand, you need to save money, and on the other hand, to seize opportunities whenever they come up. There are those who sit and wait for the perfect opportunity, but there is no such thing. You have to recognize a good opportunity and catch it on time. To do this, you need to have cash available. If all your money is tied up, you cannot sit at the window waiting for action. Investments come and go, the market goes up and down, economies grow and collapse. The world always offers us exceptional opportunities. It is us that do not make the most of them. The important thing is to grasp and ride the wave of change and not to cling on to the past. Personally, my two main ways to get rich quick are real estate and stock packages. The former are my bread and butter. The latter are useful for sudden injections of cash. If the opportunity that presents itself is too complicated, I'll just let it go. I just use easy accounting and common sense. We need financial intelligence to reduce losses and maximize profits. The losses are always just around the corner, so it is best to take them into account from the get-go. Financial intelligence also helps you to find money that does not come from banks and therefore has no interest. Understanding your skills, what to sell, and being a leader. There are many talented, qualified, brilliant people who don't earn very much. They don't earn much because they haven't understood how to sell and because they don't know what leadership is. It is vital that you learn the skills you need before choosing a specific profession and getting stuck in it. The more specific our work is, the more difficult it will be to change and to evolve it. Many people focus on improving in their field but forget to sell themselves and to connect with the customer. So you have to be able to manage the following 3 things. Cash flow. The system. This includes the family and your own individual system. Human resources. At this point, it is time to overcome the main obstacles. These are fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance. The fear of loss can be overcome with knowledge and concentrating your efforts. You have to put many eggs in just a few baskets. Cynicism creates a continuous criticism that moves you away from objective analysis. What you need to do instead is analyze rationally and with a clear head. Laziness can be overcome with 1 or more strong reasons for change. Motivation and sticking to your desires and plans can help you change your habits. You just need to keep your eye on the prize. For example, you can study entire neighborhoods while jogging. In this way, it will be much easier when you want to make a real estate investment. Arrogance often becomes a way to hide one's ignorance, and the antidote is to adopt a more curious and humble approach. It is also important to choose your friends well, to surround yourself with constructive people who resonate positively with you. You can also choose 1 or more idols to follow and imitate. Quotes. It's easier to change yourself than everyone else. Passion is anger and love combined. A human's life is a struggle between ignorance and illumination. Intelligence solves problems and produces money. Take-home message. Most people quit their jobs to look for a better paid one, believing they can solve the problem, but they do not actually solve it. Indeed, the poor and the middle class work for money, while the rich get money to work for them. But be careful. Having enough money is not enough to stop yourself being dominated by fear. You have to change your attitude towards money. You should not be too attached to it or detached from it. Rule number 1 is knowing how to distinguish between assets and liabilities, and buy the former, not the latter. The rich buy assets. The poor and the middle class buy liabilities, believing that they are assets.